I once again cannot believe that we have to do this again. But Donald Trump still doesn't understand how this virus or viruses in general spread. He doesn't understand contagion. He doesn't understand communicable disease. I don't know if you've heard this, but the White House is increasingly overrun with coronavirus infections. Trump is reportedly furious. People are having to quarantine. One of Mike Pence's staffers, his press secretary, Katie Miller, she happens to be the wife of Trump advisor Stephen Miller, a sick guy. More nepotism. Anywhere you look under a rock, you look behind a curtain at the White House, it's nepotism. She has tested positive for coronavirus. One of Trump's valets, these are Navy people who are essentially very close personal assistants to the president. They handle his meals and that type of thing. One of Trump's valets has tested positive for coronavirus. Ivanka Trump's assistant has the coronavirus. Why, she even has any role in what's going on at the White House is another question, but she does, and her assistant has tested positive. Dr. Anthony Fauci is now in a modified self-quarantine, along with Dr. Redfield of the CDC, because they were exposed to people who tested positive, and Donald Trump doesn't get it. How could Katie Miller have the virus? She was previously tested and she was negative. She was tested again and she was negative. Now, all of a sudden, she tests positive. How does that work? It makes no sense to Donald Trump. Look at this tragic video. This is maybe the dumbest thing that Donald Trump has said in his presidency. Maybe. I mean, it's up there. It's in the top 10, certainly. Take a look.
For coronavirus, this is now the second staffer in the West Wing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about it. Does anybody want to talk about it? She's a wonderful young woman. Katie, she tested very good for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden today she tested positive. She hasn't come into contact with me. Spend some time with the vice president. It's, I believe, the press person, right? You'd say press person. So she tested positive out of the blue.
She tested very good for a long period of time. Then all of a sudden, she tested positive. Today, I guess, for some reason, she tested positive out of the blue. That's how it works. At some point, everyone on Earth was negative for coronavirus. At some point, out of the blue, I guess, to use Trump's phrase, people started testing positive who previously would have tested negative if they had been given a test. Guys, he still doesn't understand it. He still doesn't get it. He's visibly confused by it. And even more catastrophic is that Trump then uses this as a justification to say tests aren't that important. Someone can test negative and then test positive. Tests don't really matter that much. That's Trump's conclusion from all of this. Take a look.
This is why the whole concept of tests aren't necessarily great. The tests are perfect, but something can happen between a test where it's good and then something happens and all of a sudden she was tested very recently and tested negative. And then today, I guess, for some reason, she tested positive. So Mike knows about it and Mike has done what he has to do.
Something can happen between tests. Yeah, it's called catching the virus from someone else. That's how a virus works. He actually says people test negative and then they test positive. This is why I'm saying testing isn't that important. No, that's why testing is important, and huge amounts of testing are necessary. Levels of testing that we are nowhere close to. There is no worse person to be dealing with this crisis. There is no worse or more incompetent administration to have in power during a global pandemic than this administration. We're trying to scale up testing. We're trying to evaluate reopening strategies. We're trying to explore the connection between, vitamin D and the virus, heat and humidity and the virus, all this stuff. Trump wonders aloud about bleach injections and still doesn't understand how a virus works. When he says, I don't get it, she was negative, then she's positive. It's almost like he sees coronavirus as a hereditary thing. Listen, she tested for having type A blood for years. All of a sudden, she tests for type B blood. It's really weird. How could that change? Right. That's not what this is. She was born Asian and now she tested black. That's really weird. I thought people's race stayed. No, this is a virus. This is how it works. This is how people catch it. And this is at this point, I think it was Bill Maher who said on his Friday program, lethal incompetence, lethal incompetence. That's what we're dealing with. And my biggest fear, and when we talk about 2020, I try to keep it to just the facts. Biden's better on climate. Biden's better on judges. Biden's better on taxes. Biden's better on healthcare. Biden's better on capital gain. Right? Just we've got an option. These are the two options. We've got to choose. Everybody's got to vote. But I do fear that the guy's going to get reelected. I know that the polls are looking pretty good for Biden. This guy has figured out a way. He lost the popular vote by 3 million and 70,000 votes in 3 states, combined with who knows how many other X factors that we've talked about, suppression, Russia, et cetera, et cetera. Comey coming out and talking about Hillary unnecessarily a second time. Any one of those things could have pushed him over, but 70,000 votes in 3 states, he won the electoral vote. I fear that once again, he'll get lucky and there will be a decline in the virus just before wave 2, and it'll time right out in early October with people saying, hey, you know what? We got past it. Even though it took longer, even though more people died, he got us past it, and they're going to go out and vote for him. And I'm worried we're going to have another 4 years of this. And it is lethal incompetence, as Bill Maher said. Let's work really hard to make sure that doesn't happen, particularly as you see what's going on with federal and Supreme Court judges. This is urgent. And when it happens over 4 years and the country is still here, we might feel like, it's not that bad. No, it's very bad. And the death toll is going to be much higher in the United States than it needed to be. The economy is going to suffer much worse and far longer than it needed to suffer thanks to this. And we've got to all keep our eye on the ball and not forget that in 5.5 months, we have an opportunity to change who is in charge. We can change who will be in charge for wave 2 and possibly wave 3 of this. And we've got to do that. One of our sponsors today is Helix Sleep, and it's a sponsor I'm thrilled about because I sleep on a Helix mattress at home, and it's just the perfect mattress. One of the best things about Helix is you don't have to guess which mattress do I need, which one will be good for me. You take their famous sleep quiz on their website, you tell them your body type, your sleeping position, your back pain issues you might have, and they will pair you with a mattress that will be perfect for you. I took the sleep quiz. The mattress they suggested was exactly what I needed. I often get too hot at night. The mattress keeps me cool. It's not too soft. It's not too firm. The texture is right. And I've just been getting way better sleep. You only buy a mattress every decade or so. Don't get stuck with something that's not perfect for you. And all Helix mattresses come with a 10-year warranty, and they'll even come to your house and pick it up within 100 days if you don't love it. But I think you will. All of my viewers will get up to $200 off your order, and you'll get 2 super premium pillows for free when you go to the link right underneath this video.